For my historical controversies project, I have chosen to focus on the Nuremberg trials that took place in response to the actions of the Nazis during World War II. On November 20th, 1945, 6 months after the surrender of Nazi Germany to the Allies, 21 military, political, media, and business leaders of the Third Reich were brought into the Palace of Justice and put on trial during what we know today as the Nuremberg trials. The Nazi defendants stood trial for the most heinous crimes known to humankind, which were all committed during World War II. Over the course of the next 11 months, trials commenced which saw the punishment of several German leaders. But with the closing of the trials, many were left scratching their heads. For so many, the punishments fell short of what they deserved. This leads me to the essential question. Were the punishments given out by the Nuremberg trials just, or should there have been harsher reparations? In my opinion, the final verdicts for many of the Nazis were not just, and the verdicts left millions of victims without proper closure. With the commencement of the 21 trials, the majority of the world stood in anticipation for the verdicts of some of history's most infamous individuals. Many of the verdicts went as expected, handing out appropriate punishments for each of the Nazis' crimes. One example is Hermann Goering, who was indicted on all 4 counts and sentenced to death. Often considered as the second most powerful member in the Nazi regime, the death penalty is the most justifiable punishment for Goering in this scenario. But it was the other defendants with lesser punishments that sparked the controversy. For example, Albert Speer, who was the Minister of Armaments and War Production for the Nazis, was only sentenced to 20 years in prison. Many felt the architect of the German army and key player in the Jewish forced labor should have been given a harsher sentence, with some reasonably asking for the death penalty. Instead, this Nazi war criminal was allowed to live as a free man after a measly 20 years in jail. And Speer was not alone. Hans Fritzsche committed several acts that should have warranted a jail sentence as well. As Germany's leading radio broadcaster, it was Fritzsche who spread Nazi ideals, persuading Germans to join the army and practice anti-Semitic acts against groups such as the Jews. But the problem included much more than those put on trial. It was those who never were tried that also deserved punishments, including death. Josef Mengele, also known as the Doctor of Death, was one of the leading officials of Auschwitz. There, he oversaw the execution of thousands of Jews and other innocent people. He also performed horrific experiments on living people to try and alter their bodies. These experiments included taking sets of Jewish twins and torturing one of the two to see if the other would feel the twins' pain. At the end of the war, Mengele fled to South America, where he lived for the rest of his life. And he was not alone. Tens of thousands of other Nazi officials escaped to South America as well, and set up colonies that are still thriving today. And there is an alarming amount of evidence present that says that Hitler also escaped to Argentina. But that's another story. Seeing so many criminals fleeing the Nuremberg trials, the officials of the world should have sent search parties for these individuals and brought them back for trial, and convicted them just like everyone else. As shown, the Nuremberg trials failed in many ways. The trials should have led to more convictions, and the trials should have also implemented harsher reparations for some of those that were convicted. To this day, the Nuremberg trials still remain an important European controversy.